RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions. We're in the thick of the competition season. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, we just finished up about a couple of hours ago, wrapping up Iron Debate with Milos Sarcev and Hidetada Yamagishi. Now, Milos is somebody that we have a large demand from our fan base. They always want more from Milos. Finally, we have him. Iron Debate going up soon at RxMuscle.com.
Yeah, Milos brought up a good point about there not being enough comparisons in the IFBB Pro bodybuilding ranks, and sometimes maybe there's guys who are getting overlooked because of that. So we broached the topic as to, is that true? What could be done? What could be changed in terms of how they judge and score things in terms of posing rounds versus symmetry rounds versus comparison rounds? And we talk about endurance in posing and how long you should be out there and how well conditioned. So I think it's an interesting topic that a lot of people are going to get to wrap their hands around. Hide obviously coming on giving his opinion as well as Chris Aceto.
So check it out. It's going to be live soon at RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle YouTube channel. Let's go straight to the questions. We have a lot going on right now at RxMuscle.com. A lot of interviews, a lot of content coming out for you fans. We're going to go right into the questions. Hoodman521, at what point in a diet do you know your metabolism has bottomed out?
If you're giving tons of cardio to someone, you've cut their food way back, they're on every fat burner in the book that you can do, and they're still not losing weight, that means your metabolism is fighting you. And at that point, usually it's a good idea to add more food in, just temporarily for maybe a couple days, to kind of try to reverse that decompensation that's going on by your body. In other words, your body is trying to slow down things so you don't burn itself up, and you want it to speed up. So the only way to really do that is not to take away more, because at that point it's not going to work anymore. You got to put more in. Hopefully you have enough time to get the person in shape, though. With a week to go, you can't be putting stuff back in. It's not going to do anything. But if you have 4 weeks out and things aren't working, you add some food back for 3 or 4 days, and then you take it away again, and that usually solves the problem.
Well, Cav, your opinion on glucose disposal agents, needed, etc., and how much of a benefit do they play in a mass gaining phase?
Well, when you're trying to put on size, you're trying to maximize everything. You're trying to maximize insulin output. So, glucose disposal agents, which help insulin work better, theoretically. In other words, they help drive nutrients into the cells, are, they're important, okay? But insulin sensitivity is more important. So that means that you want to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to insulin. So if your body releases, X units of insulin, you want it to be able to push as many carbs as possible into the cell, given that X units. You don't want your body to have to produce more because it can't get the job done because there's missing cofactors. Now, usually, the best insulin sensitizing agents that we knew naturally in the food industry was fish, wild-caught fish. And people didn't know why, but it's really because of the omega-3 fat content. Omega-3 fats really sensitize insulin receptors really well. In the same light of that, what I did was when I created my Omega-Lyze essential fatty acid supplement, which has obviously the omega-3 fish oil in it, it also has omega-6 fats coming from evening primrose oil. I also put another unusual omega-7 fatty acid in there known as palmitoleic acid. The reason I put that in there is this twofold reason. One is that it's a tremendous reducer of inflammation in the body. So we don't want high total body inflammation. That usually leads to cancer, chronic degenerative arthritis, heart disease, cancer. So I put that in there to help reduce that. And the way you can register whether that's working is you'll see your C-reactive protein levels will decrease on blood work. But it also happens to be one of the best insulin sensitizers. Palmitoleic acid sensitizes the body to insulin, sensitizes insulin receptors better even than fish oil. So I put it in there to add to that. So if you're taking Omega-Lyze 3 pills twice a day, you probably have as much insulin sensitization as you really need. Now, adding cinnamon and all these other things on top of that, is a little bit extra, but it's really not going to do very much more. Back in the 90s, we used vanadyl sulfate. I was using that a lot. The problem was you would get really low blood sugar because it really wasn't an insulin sensitizer. It actually mimicked the effects of insulin. So it was actually driving stuff into the cells. The theory was that if you used the vanadil to drive the nutrients into the cells, your body would release less insulin, less chance to get fat. The problem is everyone was getting hypoglycemic on the stuff too because it was too strong, and there was no way to quantify it. You wouldn't really, a pill was a pill. It wasn't like you could take a shot of something. So as far as that's concerned, obviously chromium is a good insulin sensitizer as well, assuming you're deficient in it. If you're not deficient in it, then it doesn't do anything. I put it in my V mineralized formula as one of the essential, nutrients that our body requires, but I don't necessarily think it's worth taking in and of itself alone because it's not going to make you burn fat. It's not going to make you more insulin sensitive. It'll only do that if you're deficient in it.
Big Daddy Jenks, how much of an effect does a person's hormone profile have on where they tend to store more body fat? If there is a strong connection, can a person manipulate their hormone levels to indirectly spot reduced fat?
Yeah, well, estrogen historically, stores body fat, at least in women, in the lower body, hips, thighs, glutes. And women who have very high estrogen usually are very bottom heavy. So by reducing the amount of estrogen in their body, okay, you can help that. That's why a lot of women pre-contest will use Nolvadex, which is an estrogen receptor blocker at 10 milligrams twice a day. As far as men go, usually men, when they have high estrogen, some of them will get also lower body fat, increases, but a lot of them get it around their waist too. And once again, if you reduce the estrogen in the body, you can help stop that spot reduction of fat. Also, not consuming enough essential fatty acids, your omega-3s and 6s, can cause your body to think that there's a fat deficiency in the body, which there really is, even though it's only just from the essential fats. So the body will go into what we call hoarding mode, and it will hold on to everything. And in men, it holds it in your lower back and abdominal area. And women, it holds it in your lower body. So that's a big mistake a lot of people make when they compete or in their off season. They're not taking essential fatty acid supplements, and their bodies are deficient in them, and then their bodies are going into storage mode. So it's like your body is trying to hoard, and you're trying to get your body to mobilize fat. Obviously, it's a no-win scenario.
Dan Pitts says, Dave, when carb cycling pre-contest, do you keep the set daily calories the same by dropping back or increasing protein and fats on high or low carb days to keep overall daily calories the same?
That's a good question. I like to not keep the calories the same every day. I think it's good to mix them up. So I usually start guys off on like a protein, vegetable, like carb like type diet mixed in with my protein fat diet. So they're varying those days. Usually it's more carb days initially, and then I start cutting back the carb days as we get closer or as their weight loss slows. And I would tend to believe, and I haven't never sat down because I don't count calories, I would bet the protein fat with no carb day is probably higher calorically than the protein vegetable carb day is. Even though the protein vegetable carb day has carbs in it, calorically it might actually be lower because fats have more calories per gram than carbs do. So, once again, I don't sit and figure calories, I figure macronutrients.
Wissa Mackle, Dave, I know a friend who always wants to have a cheat meal so he can always release more T3 and burn more fat. Is he saying the truth?
Yeah, well, I kind of invented the cheat meal, I think, at least incorporating it into real contest dieting way back when with a lot of the people that I was working with in the 90s. And the reason we did it was because I noticed, especially with the low carb diet, and back then I wasn't doing ketogenic diets, but we would go low carbs. Your body would catch on to what you were doing, and it would slow the conversion of T4 into T3. Okay, when that happens, your metabolism shuts down basically, and the only thing that will keep that T4 to T3 conversion going at optimal levels is high insulin levels. And the only way to get high insulin in your body is to eat high carbs. So once a week, I started implementing eat whatever you want once a day, and that's why I called it a cheat day. Now people, have gotten refined. They call it a refeed day, or a refeed meal. I called it a cheat meal because that's what it was. You're cheating on your diet, even though it was recommended. And what I noticed was your metabolism would just take off like a rocket ship again after doing that. I would go to the city, all you can eat, New York City at the time. I would go, that was the only place you can get all you can eat sushi buffets or restaurants. And I would go there, there was 2 restaurants there, and we would switch off back and forth. And we would eat till we couldn't move. And when I would get out of there, the sweat that was dripping off my body, I was so hot, I was like a nuclear reactor. And it was because I was stimulating my metabolic rate again, and I felt it. You know, you could actually feel the heat coming off of me in the winter. I would wear shorts and a tank top in the winter back then because I was always sweating to death because I was over 300 pounds. And you could feel the heat coming off of me, and that right there was your experimental data right there to show that the cheat meal did in fact increase metabolic rate.
You know, we often hear about tales from prep coaches in regard to an athlete not even chewing gum without consulting with them first. So Sage265 or SCE265 wants to know, do you recommend chewing gum heading into a contest?
I tell my people they can only have 3 pieces of gum a day. Okay, the sugar-free gum, because each piece of sugar-free gum still has some carbs in it because they have the sugar alcohols in there. It's usually about 2 grams, sometimes some of them are more per piece. So, you know, if you ate 20 pieces of sugar-free gum a day, that's 40 grams of carbs. That's a lot of carbs, and they're all sugar. So even though it says sugar-free, sugar alcohol is still kind of like sugar in the body. So I would prefer no one chew any gum, but if you're going to chew gum, limit it to 2 or 3 pieces a day. I think you could probably get away with that fine.
Let's go to Huge Quest. I hate this show more than Bleckman hates cutting back. Anavar or Masteron for the last few weeks, heading into a show to harden up.
For men, I would say definitely Masteron. I think Anavar is too weak. It's very expensive. It's not worth. Don't get very much bang for your buck. If you guys watched my video I did the other day on Masteron, you'll understand why I like it so much. Not only is it a great anabolic, but it actually antagonizes or blocks estrogen receptors, which is something that we really didn't know very much about. It also blocks prolactin receptors, so it can definitely harden up the body. It can prevent gynecomastia. A lot of people have seen, you know, a real improvement in their physique when they start Masteron, and they didn't know why. And that's probably one of the reasons is because it does block estrogen and DHT receptors. Excuse me, estrogen and prolactin receptors. Sorry.
Caleb Grits, Dave, in a keto diet like yours, do you count fats from meats like steak, or do you just count fats from nuts, oils, avocados, etc.?
Yeah, I don't. Whatever's in the protein source, I don't really count. But this is what I do. In lean sources of protein like chicken, turkey breast, lean white fishes, I usually give a fat source that has a lot of more calories in it, I should say, like an avocado, or nuts, or peanut butter. Whereas when I use fattier sources of protein like steak, or, sorry about the burp, a steak, what else? Salmon, swordfish. I usually use lower calorie sources of fats, macadamia nut oil, okay, for instance, olive oil. I'm trying to think what else I would use with it. Those are usually my main go-tos. Sometimes I'll use a little coconut oil, usually very rarely though, because I don't consider coconut oil an essential fat. It's kind of just a fuel source. But I'll use lower calorie. In other words, nuts and avocados have a lot more calories than, say, a tablespoon or 2 of mac oil would, because the mac oil only has oil in it. There's no carbs or protein in it. Whereas nuts have some carbs, they have some protein in it. It's a more dense food. So that's how I kind of compensate for that additional fat that you have in the fattier sources of protein.
The Atomic Beast, when you created your supplement company, Species Nutrition, what was the process like of choosing the ingredients and doses putting into your products? Did you have influence from other supplements you'd used in the past, or did you research studies done using different ingredients and trials, or did you have a team of people helping you find the best ingredients?
No, I formulated all the products myself based on what I felt that the bodybuilder needed best. You know, before I had Species Nutrition, I was basically writing lists of ingredients that people needed to go buy from like Vitamin Shoppe, just separate ingredients. Like, you know, take for joints, for instance. I said, I want you to go get a bottle of glucosamine because you're going to take 4,000 milligrams of glucosamine a day. I want you to go get a bottle of MSM and you're going to take 4,000 units of that a day. And I want you to go get a bottle of boron, you know, and you're going to add that. And so you basically were making, so I said, well, instead of 3 bottles, I could just put it all in one product and I called it Arthrolyze. And I did that with all my products, essential fatty acids. I used to do fish oil bottle, and then you have to get an evening primrose oil bottle, and you have to take them together. Now I just put it in one product, you know. And then I added other good stuff to it. V-Mineralize, same way. V-Mineralize, I actually got some of the ideas from that were from Life Extension, you know, who has a pretty good, I think it's called like a daily 8-pill, you know, type of vitamin. And there was another product that was a purely chelated mineral product, and I kind of combined those two things and then added fruit and vegetable extracts because I'm a big blueberry extract fanatic, and I like the tomato extracts I have in there as well because of the tremendous phytonutrient and antioxidant properties of them. And I made my own products out of it. So I just used the knowledge I had from what I wanted to take myself, and I created the ultimate products that would make my life easier so I wouldn't have 16 bottles, although I still take 16 bottles every day because now I have a lot of cardiac type stuff. I take CoQ10 and niacin and which to be honest with you, we're working on a new product called Cardio Protect, which will help protect the heart, and that's going to be all the vitamins that I think are missing, vitamin K, extra vitamin D. We're going to put them all into one formula, so that will kind of complement the B-mineralized and the omega-lized, and you pretty much won't have to take anything else with that.
Jay Guy, now we get this variation of question all the time. Triple H, did you do Triple H's diet for WrestleMania? And we've gotten this question as well as far as maybe not the particulars, but in general, what was your approach to prepping Triple H for these kind of events?
Yeah, I did Triple H's diet. I know this was the best he looked. A lot of people have texted me and emailed me, and I thank you for that. Matter of fact, he texted me and thanked me as well. I also do Stephanie McMahon's diet, his wife, and she looked tremendous as well. Triple H's body, as he gets older, it seems to get, changes, and so every year we do a slightly different diet. This year we did a little bit more carbs than we've done in the past, but then I kind of cut him back toward the end a little bit, but then he got so lean. As soon as I take his carbs out and get him on pure ketogenic, which I know he loves, he leans out really quickly now. Because I don't do it for a long period of time, and I pull him and he gets in shape, and then I start feeding him. I was telling him to have a cheat meal in the middle of the week, and he was like, "You sure?" I'm like, "Yep." So the approach is basically, I know his body at this point. I know how he responds. I don't have to give him a lot of cardio. He stays relatively lean. He was really kind of a little out of shape this year because he kind of was so busy he couldn't get to the gym for a few weeks. As soon as he kicked it in and we cleaned his diet up, boom, he really responded very quickly and got in really good shape. And he's a machine. He listens to everything I tell him to do. There's no deviation. When you work with someone like that who if you tell them to do this, they're going to do it, you're going to get good results. There's no way around it. And I work with people who are who use a lot of condiments, and they try to create little recipes of their own, and they have problems. They don't lose weight. But someone like him is, like I said, he's a machine. If I tell him to eat, dirt, he'll eat dirt. If I tell him to eat white paper from the printer, he'll eat white paper from the printer. And that's just the way it is, and that's why he always is in great shape. And like I said, it's fun because every year we get to add a slightly new twist on to what he's bringing. This year, I wanted to bring him in ridiculously shredded. And the great thing was he got in shape early, so I was able to fill him out as well. So we kind of got the best combination of fullness and conditioning.
Oja Laniko, what effects does severe anxiety have on muscle growth, and could anabolics possibly combat against the rising cortisol levels?
Yeah, well, anxiety is not good for anything. There's nothing good that comes from anxiety. And the funny thing is that there's no such thing as anxiety. And you might be saying, what are you talking about? Well, if something's real, you should be able to quantify it, right? Like if a pig is real, you can hold a pig in your hands, right? If an apple is real, you can take an apple and you can bite into it. But I've never seen a bucket full of anxiety. Have you? You ever seen a bucket full of anxiety? No. If you can't put anxiety in a bucket, then it doesn't exist. You're making it up in your head. So a lot of people have severe anxiety and panic and OCD. And these are all things that are constructs that are being made up by your brain because for whatever reason or whatever environmental experiences that you've had in your past that are such. And of course, these things are not good for muscle building, okay? Because they do increase cortisol output. They increase adrenaline output from the adrenal glands, which stresses your body out even more and raises heart rate and raises blood pressure. And it does all kinds of terrible things to your body. And your body's not going to want to build and repair muscle and burn fat, okay, when it's too worried about all the other stuff that's going on in its body that it shouldn't have going on in the body. So you need to learn to relax. I tell people, I know it sounds tutti frutti, spiritual, out of your mind, but if you can't calm yourself down and quiet your brain, take a meditation class. Go take a yoga class, something that's going to be able to calm you down. I know if you've never taken one, you're probably like, oh, it's not going to work. Trust me, it'll work. If you're that bad, it's better than having to go on anti-anxiety drugs, taking Xanax during the day and stuff like that. That's not going to help. Now, if you use a little, I have a product called Euphoria, which is a bunch of GABA metabolites that does help you relax. That's something you can use at night when you get home, from gym or get home from work and you're a little stressed from the day. You take a little bit to relax, but you can't start popping Xanax all day long and Valium and something like that. That's not going to help you, solve the problem. The problem has to be solved from within, not from without. And that's, I think, a lot of the problems that people don't address. And try a meditation class, try a yoga class.
JS Brown 923, Dave, do you think taking Adderall once daily could potentially cause muscle loss during a contest prep phase, assuming HGH test, so on and so forth, being used during the prep phase?
It probably won't, one Adderall a day, but you know what? One Adderall turns into 2 Adderall a day. And, it's what happens is you get addicted to this stuff. It throws your neurotransmitters off in your body because you're overusing them. And eventually you crash from the stuff. And when you come off the stuff, you become you're useless. You can't do anything. So, people always ask me, because they know I don't use stimulants. I haven't used a stimulant. And even when I competed, I only used coffee, but I drank a lot of it, when I was contest dieting. And they say, how do you get through the day? I'm like, you know what? I got 2 hours or 3 hours of sleep last night. I went to bed very late. My son got up early this morning, and I'm fine. And I drink coffee, but I drink decaf coffee, so there's no caffeine in there. But when you stop using stimulants, you don't need them anymore. You can self-motivate yourself. You just don't feel tired all the time. And if I feel tired, you know what? I got a cup of Amino Evolved here, just the amino acids, because there's no sugar in here, will help me focus better. It's weird. The amino acids give me a little bit of a focus. I'll use my raw cacao bars because those have theobromine in, which dilate the vessels in your brain, which allow you to think better. That's the way to address it. Once you start down that stimulant path, it leads to no good. I'm telling you. Adderall leads to cocaine use. It can lead to more serious stimulant use. All those pre-workouts that people take all day long, you crash from them. You're screwing up your neurotransmitters in your brain, and you're going to mess up the blood chemistry in your brain. And you know what? Down the road, you're going to be mad and pissed off that you did it for all the years that you did, because you're never going to feel right. Trust me. It's okay to use stimulants, but limit the amount. Only use them when you absolutely need them.
We often get questions about who had the biggest arms that you ever saw, who had the biggest this, and King Aesthetics 123 wants to know the biggest competitive bodybuilder you ever met, and if it's not Ronnie Coleman, who is it?
It's easy. I don't have to even think about it. Greg Kovacs. No one was bigger than him. No one had bigger arms than him. His arms were 26 inches probably, but there might be guys out there with better arms than his were, but he was 420 pounds at one point, and I remember it was the '98 Olympia. He could barely, move. He was so big. You've never seen a human being that large before. Now, I didn't see Lou Ferrigno when he was in the 300s. He was about 320. But remember, Greg was 420. But Ferrigno was pretty damn big at about 320, 330, as well. But I don't know if he was probably a little taller than Greg too. I think Greg was bigger. I really do. He was the only guy who, when I walked through the shopping mall with, and I was 320 pounds myself, so he weighed 100 pounds more than me, no one even looked at me. Now, if he wasn't there, I would be getting stares left and right, because I would walk around in shorts and a tank top. Greg was that big, and you know what? The truth is, I don't think there'll ever be someone as big as that. He made Big Ramy look small.
I was looking for a training question, found one, CFips_DFit. Is there any advantage or disadvantage to deadlifting with a trap bar versus a flat bar?
Probably not. I mean, hand position's a little different. Some people feel it's a more natural movement. I always like the whole, deadlifting, with the bar dragging along your shins and ripping apart your shins and knees and stuff like that. I just thought it came with the territory, I also like the line of force that when your hands are in this position as opposed to when your hands are in this position. I feel like my biceps are vulnerable in this position, so I always opted for the bar.
Bassier C. Dave, what are some quick and easy meals you used in your bodybuilding days when you were short on time?
I ate a lot of tuna and rice. Minute rice in the microwave will cook, and now they have the ones that are almost pre-cooked. You just put them in there for 30 seconds or a minute. And I would put a packet, or back in the day we'd do a can of tuna, right in there, mix it in. I'd throw some, oil in with it or something like that, or a handful of cashew nuts, and that's my meal. I mean, I can make it in literally 3 minutes, And I eat a lot of those meals, believe me. You could even do canned chicken now. The canned chicken is pretty good as well. That's a quick meal. I mean, there's no excuse. And a lot of times, when I would be out all day training people, I would make 3, 4, or 5 of those up and put them in Tupperware that morning right before I would leave. I mean, it would take me literally like 15 minutes to make 5 meals just so I had backup. I didn't always eat them all, but I try to eat them all. And then I would bring a couple shakes with me. I mean, no excuse why you can't eat.
Curse Fitness benefits of infrared sauna and cryotherapy. Best time to use them, if at all. Pre-contest, off-season, helping from recovery, injury, or just muscle recovery in general.
I haven't used either of those modalities. I'm not really a big sauna person. Like, I know some people like it. I used to do in the winter when I would get to the gym, if the gym had a sauna, I would go in there for about 5 minutes just to warm up from outside to get my muscles loose before I would train. But, I mean, I'm not a big sauna user. The cryotherapy I hear is good. A lot of people have told me they like it. It kind of wakes up their body. It helps them with recovery. It's like you're shocking your body real quick, with that blast of coldness that hits you. Like I said, I haven't tried it myself, but I imagine, if it's that popular, it probably does help. To me, the best bang for your buck is a full body massage. Every 2 weeks. I used to do it once a week, but if you could do it every 2 weeks, even once a month, you're going to see your recovery rate increase a lot, and you're going to be less likely to get injured.
Time for a couple of quick questions. Muscle by Mones, good friend of the show. Dave, what can you tell us about T-ball and its benefits to a cycle, if any?
Anything like Dianabol, Turinabol, which is, I guess, T-ball, Anadrol, these are all very strong orals that increase strength, certainly, but they also blunt your appetite. It makes it hard to eat. So I'm not a big fan of using Anadrols and Dianabols and Turanabols off-season, because if you can't eat, you can't grow. A lot of guys then will use them pre-contest because it gives them strength and it does blunt your appetite, which is good, I guess, when you're dieting. I'm not so sold on the fact that I would be using that much of a toxic drug during contest prep when you're probably on 3 or 4 or 5 other different drugs. So once again, I do like to use halotestin 2 weeks before a show, which is an oral, have some toxicity, but you're only using it for 2 weeks. The rest of the time, I try to really keep orals to a minimum. Maybe a little Dianabol just to start your off-season diet, to kick things into phase. But after that, I really stay away from orals.
Before we hit our last question, again, we do this every week. We give a shout out every week to a retailer that is carrying Species Nutrition. And today, we select Proflex from Kapolei, Hawaii. They are one of the more loyal retailers of Species Nutrition. They believe in our brand. They're constantly promoting us, posting pictures with the products, talking about the logic, the reasoning behind the products, and we're very, very proud to have them on board. Check them out, Proflex, Hawaii. Their address on the bottom of the screen, 590 Farmington Highway. It's in Kapolei, Hawaii. Dave, another loyal retailer, the type that you like, associated with the Species Nutrition brand.
Yeah, I like the small stores a lot of time. The big stores are great too, but the small stores really give a lot of customized service to the customers. And in those stores, Species Nutrition does very well because the store, people who own it and the people who work there are knowledgeable. They explain how the products work. And I think the customer really enjoys that and appreciates that. So we thank all our retailers out there, obviously, for supporting the brand and continuing to promote, the healthy lifestyle that we promote.
One more question, actually, before I get to that. If you're going to be stopping in the store, ask for Miss Rose. Miss Rose, one of the more visible members of Proflex, will post pictures of her time to time on the Species Nutrition Instagram as well. Final question from Mexican Silverback 75. How low in calories did you get pre-contest, and how did you handle the mental grind of it?
I don't know. Like I said, I never counted calories, so I don't know. I was probably around 2,000, maybe, 2,500 calories, and maybe the lowest I've ever gone. I did some crazy days where it was, really low, very, very, almost no carbs. The protein was always pretty high, but, I've done real low fat days, so I've done just protein and some vegetable days. I mean, probably didn't even need to do it back then, but, when I first started, I didn't have the metabolism I had toward the end of my career, so I've suffered. And you know what? You get through it. I was miserable. I remember in the middle of the night, I would wake up, my feet would be like just tingling, and I'd want to eat, and I just felt horrendous. And I had such a good metabolism. I would go and I would have like a Metrex shake in the middle of the night, and an hour later I was up again and I couldn't sleep again. And everything I touched hurt my skin because I had no body fat on me. I'm sure that taking the anabolics I was on was making me irritable too. It's not a good feeling, but I didn't care because my outlook on the whole situation was that I want to win the show. And I don't want to get up there and think that the person next to me who beat me because they worked harder than me. So no one was going to outwork me. That was my mentality. So that when I got up there, I knew there was nothing I could have done better to possibly improve the way I looked. And most of the time I showed up, that's the way I looked. I looked like I did the most I possibly could with what I had to work with, the tools I had, the amount of muscle I had, the shape I had, and the genetics that God gave me. So, I have no regrets about any shows that I ever did. One show, someone talked me into not using diuretics. Oh, you'll look fuller. That was the one mistake I ever made. But other than that, I think I looked really good up there every time I got up there.
Tyler, don't kill me. Dave, a quick hitter if you want to answer this one real quick. Diary of a Fat Guy, your thoughts on incorporating mini cuts into an off-season. How do you approach this strategy?
I'm not into that. The only time I'll cut back food in the off-season is if a person just can't eat any more food. They're not growing, they can't eat any more food. I'll cut them back for a week. I'll cut their carbs in half, or maybe their protein and carbs in half, and it makes them so hungry because their body thinks they're going into dieting mode that they can't wait to start eating again. I've done that, but I don't do I don't do diets in the middle of an off season because that's not productive. Now, if you're not a guy who's competing every single year and you want to just go back and forth off season pre-contest, that's fine. But other than if I'm working with an athlete who's getting ready for a show at the end of the year, I'm not going to put them on mini cuts cycles in the middle of what they're doing. There's no purpose for that.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Again, keep an eye out for our episode of Iron Debate with Milo Sarcev, Chris Aceto, and Hidetada Yamagishi. For our producer, Tyler Shore, and Dave Palumbo, actually, we do have one more thing that we are looking to promote real quick. A good friend of the show, Dave, Mr. G, correct?
Yes.
Launched a new brand of chips, protein chips, M. Potts potato chips. Nothing gets through a long day of production like the delicious protein-packed potato chips from Mr. Potts. 3 bags a day, and you'll be at the Olympia in no time. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about M. Potts potato chips?
Tyler lives on those chips, by the way. It's a good part of his. It's like you know how there's different food groups. That's one of his food groups, the Mr. Potts potato chips food group. He gets every day. He gets here.
On that note, we're just gonna do it for Ask Dave again. Follow us, official_RxMuscle. Keep it locked to RxMuscle.com.